right, advanced folks, we've got two more we're looking at this week, 153 and 154. And these both have to do with scales and arpeggios. And let me tell you something about scales and arpeggios both. Both of them you're going to be practicing your entire musical life. Professional instrumentalists, professional singers, Broadway singers, pop stars, people who perform in orchestra all practice scales and arpeggios. Okay, so why and what's a scale and what's an arpeggio? A scale, we know from before in our book, is when the notes just go in order without skipping anybody. It's sequential. An arpeggio, we can't play chords too much on our instrument. A chord is when you play multiple notes at the same time, like, I mean, we can play a couple, but we can play two. We can kind of play, let's see. I went up to three, but I can't do three at the same time. My bow isn't, the strings are curved, my bow isn't flat enough, though it can't work to do that way. So we go like 2 and 2 is a chord. But what instruments do play chords? Guitars strum chords all the time. They have 6 strings they strum. Pianos play chords all the time. So a lot of times what we do, and other instruments do it as well, is they take the notes of a chord, notes that would sound at the same time. Let's say like C, E, and G. Okay, that's called a major chord. And rather than play them together, because we can't really do that, we play them one after another. A C, E, G, C. Things like that before. Those are called arpeggios, and they're chords, but they're just broken up. You play the pitches of the chord one at a time instead of all together. Okay? And so in these two, we're going to do 153 and 154. We use scales or pieces of scales and arpeggios. There's not even anybody at school today. We're on fall break and the bells are still going off, but I'm up at school. We're here recording this for you. Okay, so the C major scale and arpeggio. Okay, remember what I said in the last video? What we always have to look at before we start is the key signature at the beginning. No sharps. So all of our Fs and our Cs have to be natural. Okay, you get in the groove of that. They're not sharps, not high second fingers, they're naturals. Pulled back, touching first. And we've played the C major scale before. This time they're just throwing a couple half notes in there. See how the C's are half notes? Let's play those first 4 measures like I just did. Don't worry about the part where it says arpeggio yet. And let's just do the C major scale. Make sure we hold the C's a little longer. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. C. D. And I went on to the first note of the arpeggio, because that's really the end of the scale. It's really important you play the notes F natural and C natural in tune, otherwise it'll sound like this. We don't have the sound of that same scale anymore, do we? The do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We don't have that anymore if you don't play the naturals correctly. So make sure you put those naturals correct. Okay, now let's look at the arpeggio. The notes of the chord of the arpeggio are only 3 different notes. C, play a C. 3 fingers on your G string. Now do an E, 1 finger on your D. And a G, 3 fingers. And now let's put a high C too, okay? 2nd finger on your A string. So we have low C and high C. And the arpeggio is just going to go back and forth between those notes. C, E, G, C, 2, 3, 4. There's a whole note. Listen to it one more time. 2, 3, 4. Your turn. Try it. 1, 2, C, go. C, E, G, C. Now let's put it all together. The scale, and then it goes directly into the arpeggio. 1, 2, get your C set, ready, go. 154. Listen to our sections. Only really works if you play it along with the accompaniment that goes along with our Essential Elements book, okay? So make sure you go to essentialelementsinteractive.com and play it with there, because as you can see written above the staff, it tells you what sections, what strings, parts of the string section are playing each part. We play the first measure. It's just the beginning of the scale. C, D, E, F. Look, it's F natural. The violas play the next measure, the cellos play the next measure, the basses play the next measures, and then we have 2 notes, G, F, and notice above our notes, it says VLN, abbreviation for violin. Then the violas have 2 notes, VLA, viola, VCL, VCL. That stands for violoncello, which really is the proper name of the cello. We just always shorten it to cello. So if you see VCL, that means cello. Cello, and then bass. And then we all end with G, F, E, F. Look, here's an arpeggio. G, E, C. Now you know that that's what arpeggios are. You're going to start seeing them all over your music. In fact, scales and arpeggios make up most of what songs are. A lot of it. So that, remember how I said everybody practices scales and arpeggios? That's one of the reasons why. Because the better you are at playing those basics, the scales and arpeggios, songs come a lot easier. There's also a scale and an arpeggio for every single different key signature you could possibly have. Like there's C major that has no sharps. There's G major that has 1 sharp. There's D major that has 2 sharps. So if you practice all the different ones, then you're ready for your songs and used to playing your notes in tune. So when you see those notes in songs, you can play them easier. So that's why everybody, no matter how long, I have friends who've been playing the violin professionally for 30 years, playing in orchestras across the country, and daily when they practice, they carve out time to practice scales and arpeggios. So they're really great things to practice to improve your playing. So let's try this one together. It's not going to sound like much with just us playing it, but when you play it with the website, you'll hear the different strings, and you'll hear how it gets lower and lower with all the different sections, and it's kind of fun. All right, so here's us. We're going to start with a little scale. 1, 2, ready, go. Viola, 2, 3, 4. Cello, 2, 3, 4. Bass, 2, get ready, G. Viola, cello, bass, us. And that gets you used to counting in whole rests too. And there's some half rests in there too. Remember, whole rests hang down below the line, half rests sit on top of the line. Okay, they're only half a rest, they're on top. The whole is like the hole in the ground, hangs down below, and the whole rest gets 4, the half rest gets 2. That's kind of what it's like playing in the orchestra sometimes. Thankfully, as violins, we get to play much of the time, but there's times where you have to just count your rests and be ready to come back in at the right time, so that gives you a little taste of that. All right, so have fun with your scales and arpeggios. See you again soon.